when I think about some of the hardest parts of my life, right? Some of the things that I've triumphed through, so much of what got me through was optimism. And I know for a lot of people, like that can be faith, that can be, translation. For me, they're kind of interchangeable. But so much that got me through was literally optimism. I think one of the things that I realized, like being African American, coming from the back, not coming from a lot, right? Being in what you would kind of consider, low obviously there are people who definitely have things worse, of course, but being in that space in my life and just realizing, like, as I began to understand certain systems and as I began to be exposed to the other African Americans who do not have to struggle, right? It's not that they didn't grow up struggling. Some people have been, but as I find myself in spaces, right? And maybe some of those spaces are online. I find myself sitting with the other African Americans that we like to kind of, argue against. And when we say things like, not all Black people are poor, not all African Americans are a monolith, right? But I'm talking about people who work hard, people who really have had success in their lives. It doesn't mean that they don't have trials. I mean, it doesn't mean that they have never experienced racism, like they've never experienced discrimination. But I'm talking about people who keep going, people who put their faith, their optimism, their belief in something greater at the forefront of their lives, and they keep pressing. And they, without fail, right? Something always shapes up for them, right? God makes a way. It happens for them, right? I don't think that this is a formula that is gate kept. I don't think that it's a formula that but one of the things that I will definitely say for a lot of young people, especially during these times, right? For anybody who's kind of having a hard time right now, I think one of the greatest challenges for African Americans is always about the environment. And it's not just a lack of resources. So much of it is the misinformation, the lack of knowledge, not having anybody to really speak life into you and to what your plans and the things that you're trying. Like, even if your entrepreneurial endeavors are going to fail, even if starting the bakery business is stupid, whatever the case may be, like, you're trying to make something happen for yourself. And something that I find to be so common about a lot of people in this very developmental stage where you're trying to turn your situation around is that you're going to be around people who are so quick to tell you why it's not going to work, why it ain't going to happen, why what you're doing is stupid, how you look retarded. Sometimes it really is that type of verbal abuse. And when I just think about the normalization of that and how if you don't have anybody in your life to kind of counter that and say, no, you keep putting your best foot forward. You keep applying for those jobs. You stay in school. You make it happen. You figure, despite what people are saying and despite people being online and venting, right? Okay. Because that's what people be online doing. All right. Venting, projecting without any level of self-awareness, right? Sharing all their negative experiences, all their grievances, all their disappointments, right? All this stuff that they're not even aware of. They're bringing to the forefront of a conversation and being something like a voice of reason, right? In your life. And you start ingesting that. You drop out of school, you give up on the business, you give up on what it is that you're trying to build to change your situation. You stop believing that tomorrow can be better for you, and you start to kind of adopt this ideology that this is just life. This is life. This is what it is to be an African American. We didn't come from nothing. And you not saying this to yourself out loud, your pride, maybe your ego, you're in a space where it's no, I know this is going to work for me, whatever the case may be. But you are starting to ingest a lot of the negativity around you in your environment. And it's unfortunate because you have a lot of people to where, like I said, it's what they know is what they know. They don't know anybody who's went to college and who's actually made something of themselves and who's not struggling, who's not living paycheck to paycheck, right? For a lot of people, they're not even honest with themselves about their situations and why they are in the situation that they are in. It is very rare to meet people, especially when you're in these type of environments, like I said, or these urban communities. It's very rare to meet people who are you know what? Let me tell you something. I'm in the situation I'm in my life because this is the choice I made. And that's the choice I made. And this is the choice I didn't make. This is the path I didn't take. That requires so much humility, right? And so when people say, oh, Black people want to be victims, I don't think it's so much about victim mentality as much as I think it's just you have that lack of knowledge, right? The Bible says that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. Okay, clock it. Okay. I said click, clack, clock it, right? But because of that lack of knowledge, you don't have a lot of people who can sit with themselves and be like, dang, I'm poor, I'm broke, I'm struggling, I'm in this situation that I'm in with my life and my unhappiness and my misery and my vices or whatever the case may be because of the choices that I made. This wasn't just a Black thing. This wasn't just an American thing. This wasn't just, it's a life thing in the sense that we all make mistakes. All right. We all make mistakes. And guess what? All right. We got to be real about it. Some mistakes that we make are going to carry a price. And it's going to carry a consequence. And sometimes that consequence is going to, in fact, alter our lives. I know for myself, I had to sit in a space in my life just and kind of grieve how I chose a path that wasn't necessarily what was probably God's best for me. You know what I mean? But guess what? With my faith, with my hope, my optimism, my hard work, my ambition, my drive, my vision for my life, never giving up on myself, I was able to take that and be like, you know what? Nah. All right. This was a bit of a detour, not what I saw, not what I expected. If I'm being honest, not what I wanted. You know what I mean? Not what I really wanted. But guess what? I'm about to take it for my good. All right. God's going to use it for my good. I'm going to be all right. All right. What we doing next? What's next? Let me learn the lesson. Let me really sit with this situation, this choice, this decision that I made that was life altering and make sure I never do this again. What do I need to do? How do I need to get better from this situation? And that's what people don't tell you. Most of the African Americans and the people that you're around, especially when you're in these urban communities, these rural areas where there's a lot of poor Black people, talk about it. Because y'all love to do a documentary on the south side of Chicago. Y'all love to do a documentary in the heart of Cincinnati. Y'all love to do a documentary. Y'all going to pull a documentary. That's what y'all going to do. But you're not going to sit with the people. Because it's not just a lack of resources financially and materially. For the most part, Black people be doing all right. Are there some people who are gravely impoverished? Absolutely. But let me just tell you right now, we come from nothing. All right. We were enslaved. When we were freed, they took the shackles out and said, leave the plantation. Here you go. All right. Here's a basket of biscuits that you made, that you prepared last night. You can take those and a few garments. All right. And guess what? We made it happen. So when, I know a lot of times we talk about material things and we kind of focus on that. Black people going to make it happen. We're going to get it done. We're going to get what you need. You're going to have what you need. All right. I'm not saying there's always a lack of resources. I'm just saying that we focus so much on the material emphasis in our communities that and even people who come into our communities, right? People who come in the name of being the savior of the community with their nonprofits and their, missionary trips and their organizations, but you're not really sitting with the people. You're not really listening to the people because what the people need, okay, it's not money. The people, yeah, they might need some money, but the people need knowledge. Okay. The people need to be freed from the mind. All right. The people need psychological freedom. All right. Because that's really what it is. And we want to, financial literacy. Well, if you ain't got no foundation, what are we doing financial literacy? See, so we don't have the order and we don't have the structure and we're just, it's chaotic and people are really just adding, gasoline on the fire. You see what I'm saying? It's not necessarily a lack of financial literacy. I mean, you can have the discipline to save your money but when you ain't making no money, what are we doing? You see what I'm saying? When you're not in a position the key is to get in a vehicle that can actually bring about these things. And this is the thing that we don't realize is the downfall. You see what I'm saying? So many of us don't have a vehicle, right? It's too many negative conversations around education, too many traumatic stories about this and that, when the reality is that you have a lot of people who don't know how to do life. You guys know when I dropped out of college in 2018, I decided I was going to be a writer. And I tell this story all the time. I decided I was going to be a writer. I wanted to pursue my dreams, and when I dropped out of college, I knew I did not want to be ignorant. I knew I did not want to be unintelligent. I started reading books and it started off with self-help. I wanted to get my mind right. I wanted to think positively because I was kind of venturing into a little bit of entrepreneurship, although I was really self-identified as an artist, right? And I started reading books and that really developed the love of reading for myself. I realized that I could read a book that could put me years ahead of my peers, right? Not from a competitive standpoint, but just more so like I was young, but I was wise. And I started to realize how just in having wisdom, my life could benefit from it. I could prolong my days. I wasn't falling into the same pitfalls as some of the girls around me was falling into, because I already knew about that. I already know hey, he gonna hit you with the okie doke. You know what I mean? Like, I already knew about that. And I won't sit here and act like it was all me though, because there was a lot of grace that I feel like God had on my life, and I don't know why, and I'm not here to say I'm the chosen one. No, that ain't me. I just know that God was really with me for a lot of my life, because it could have been me, but it wasn't me. And so now I sit here and I do my podcast and I try to share what I can, but y'all don't be listening though. You see what I'm saying? Like, and so there you have it, right? Because I'm not showing up to the community and I'm not passing out checks, and because it doesn't matter. I'm sitting here talking to you, but you don't want to listen. You see what I'm saying? So that's really and it's not just me, because who am I? I'm just saying in general, it's the knowledge piece that we're missing. Too many people want to talk about how to make money. Listen, at the end of the day, if you can get your own vehicle, you can do whatever you want to do. We don't talk enough about the honesty in regards to entrepreneurship. We don't talk enough about how to even get a good job. I don't know why this is so underrated. This is America. People work here. All right. I know you want the land of the free, the home of the brave. For who? Okay. If you want to be an entrepreneur, that's fine. You want to be an entrepreneur, that's fine. But it comes with a cost. It comes with a price. It's going to look different depending on where you are, how you started, what you're building, what you're doing. Can you live with that? Because you know what I found? A lot of African Americans who take this path cannot live with that. They do not want to do their taxes. They're not keeping record of their financials for the year. They don't want to do their taxes. They don't know where the money is going, they don't know. There's no budget. There's no system. And that's from entrepreneurs who were, in corporate America, transitioned to entrepreneurship. Now they got their own businesses, and there's still no system. Okay. Being an entrepreneur is a very hard thing. I'm not talking about my girlies. All right. I'm not saying girlies in that sense, but I'm not talking about people who have side businesses and you working on the side. You do what you do. But I'm talking about people who are like, I want this to replace my income for my livelihood. That's a big stake. Like, you know what I mean? And we treat it like a casualty, and it's not. And so what happens is you get people who get out there, they have no idea what they're doing, right? There's no systems, there's no knowledge. It doesn't work. And guess what? Now you can say you're self-employed and what? You're not working for the white man. And here we go. Let me pause there. What we not going to do and what we not going to do over here on Renaissance Room, okay? We're not going to pick and choose when we want to fight the battle. Right? Like, we're not going to justify certain things, and we're not going to pick and choose when we want to pick up our cross as African Americans and carry it in terms of our progress, right? In terms of equality, all right? In terms of combating racism. Like, we are not going to pick and choose, because you know what I found? Let me tell you what I found. It's a thing of, I don't want to work for the white man. I don't want to have, I want to be my own entrepreneur. I want my own freedom. But at the same time, when they're out here trying to cancel the VRA, you're not showing up to city council, you're not voting. You say you don't believe in the ballots. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Right. So a lot of times you have this type of attitude, and it's not practical. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because I don't want to go any further and be misunderstood or misconstrued. I don't want my words to be, and I don't want to offend anybody, most importantly. But the reality is that I just think for many African Americans, and I just want to come on here and say this, like, you can have a good life. You know what I mean? And we like to have these movies where there's the rebel who's like, what's a good life? Working for the man. Well, listen. Some people aren't going to make it in entrepreneurship. Some people have jobs that they actually enjoy. It's a really sad thing. I think that in many ways, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I'm not here to really say why this is, but it's so unfortunate that, stability, upward mobility, progress in the sense of you being African American, you've gone through, your schooling or whatever the case may be. You have a degree, you have, education, you know how to live life, right? Like how to eat healthy, how to take care of yourself, how to invest in your future, together, how to provide for your kids, how to provide for yourself, and, maybe give to your family, to volunteer in community, whatever. It's really sad how for so many African Americans, when you think about America's depictions of this type of life, right, this stability, this life that everybody is also working towards, right? I mean, maybe Hispanics, I think they also can kind of get caught up in the entrepreneurial, et cetera, but that's a different culture. I'm not going to go there. I just think that we do this thing with African Americans and with Black people is that we always try to make it seem like because we are working hard, we're handling our business, we're getting it done, we are Uncle Tom. You know what I mean? We are Uncle Tom and we working for the white man and we doing this and we got our cats and our tails curled. And it's really sad because I just think that this level of dehumanization doesn't happen for any other particular race. There's nothing wrong with having a good job. You take care of your family, you do what you got to do. You see what I'm saying? What's wrong with that? Like, I don't know when we got to that point where it's like the corporate America, blah, blah, blah. And I think one of the things I always get so hard on college students about, and those who went straight through, and I always kind of had my little beef with them, is because they don't even realize how privileged they are. And this is one of the blessings I always say for myself. It's like coming from the back to the front. It's like you don't even realize what it's like to really be out here hustling. Like you're doing your little TikTok content and you're critiquing corporate or whatever the case may be. But guess what? You already made it. You ain't worried about how your bill's finna get paid. You ain't out here working DoorDash and freaking Uber Eats and doing this and doing that and working temp agencies. And you ain't out here hustling for $89 to pay the Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? That's not your life. So for you to just be so cash with it, it's like it's reckless, but it's ignorant, but it's also a thing of like, it's my beef with them, but I'm not mad at them because I just realized that they've never had to live it, and if you've never had to live something, you never had to live through something, then you're easily going to have, a different level or a lack of appreciation for it, right? Like I said, you come on here, you do your corporate content, but guess what? You already made it. Where you stay at is where you stay at. That's your choice, but it looks pretty comfy. You know what I mean? You probably ain't worried about your bills being paid. You know what I mean? If you're managing your money right, all right, and you ain't got too much debt. Come on now. And you're creating your content and you have the means to fund a side business. Okay, talk about it, because entrepreneurship is about money, baby. Well, let's talk about it. Everybody's worried about the end goal. And let me stop being condescending. I don't want to say everybody, but sometimes we can focus so much on the end goal of entrepreneurship and making that level of money, not realizing that this is the X amount of dollars that has to go into this, right? X amount of dollars, X amount of time to get to X amount of dollars for the profit. You know what I mean? X amount of profit. And we don't recognize, we don't sit with that. So I just think I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a lot easier to start entrepreneurship when you've come from corporate. All right. And you got every entrepreneur I know that has a platform that is even, mildly admirable has come from corporate. And they will tell you this, but it's very brief. It's very brief. Their message is, listen, entrepreneurship is key. Buy my course, support my content. Look at what I'm doing. Whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. Look at me. But they're not telling you this is how I started. And so my whole premise for this video is this podcast, I should have been a video, but my entire premise of this is that we just do this thing today. And I just think for many African Americans, you got to get a vehicle. You have to get stability, period. If you get stability, let me tell you what is going to shift in your life. You're actually going to have a foundation to build something, y'all. Like, you cannot build anything when you got cracks over here. You gotta manage a leak over here with this hand. And you got to get the bucket on this foot. And you got to you can patch the wall with this arm. Like, you can't move. Look at you. Your hands is tied. You see what I'm saying? You can't build nothing like that. How are you going to build something? How are you going to build anything when you got to lay you don't have a foundation? Do you see what I'm saying? So I don't know what it is. Like I said, I just think it's unfortunate. I think it's being around a lot of people who, just to be honest, are ignorant. You have some people who are willfully ignorant and they're just a fool. And then you have some people who are just ignorant and they don't know that they're ignorant, but they also don't want to admit the fact they ain't never read no books. They ain't never took no courses. They ain't got no advanced degrees. They've been doing the same thing for the past 30 plus years. Insanity, ain't getting nowhere. And they want to blame it on the world and the system in life when the reality is that, no, it's you. You're stuck. You see what I'm saying? And so it's unfortunate because these are our elders. Talk about it. Y'all want to talk about it? Because I'm going to talk about it. These are our elders. These are the older women who will tell you, at the end of the day, oh, it ain't no this, it ain't no that. This is how relationships are and whoop-de-whoop. And it's like, no, that's not how life is. It don't have to be that way for you. Do you see what I'm saying? No, you don't have to be struggling and be on the system because you're Black and you need help no. If that's some people and that's your story and that's how you are navigating life, God bless you. Keep pressing. But for many people, you have so many people who just coach you into this dependence without ever allowing you to explore that for yourself. You see what I'm saying? Whether that's control with, from relatives who have a little couple dollars or whatever the case may be. That's the thing about persons who are inferior. They will always go around, trying to find and gain some level of superiority. And sometimes that looks like keeping you stuck. Because in my mind, right, if I'm somebody, I've never moved, I'm stuck. And I'm not saying moved. I mean, like, emotionally, spiritually, if I'm in my 50s and I still think and act like a 17-year-old, like, that's what it's going to give. And so guess what? The people around me can't grow because guess what? If you was to grow, if you was to become something, if you was to actually go to school and make it work and make it happen for yourself, and you actually took the next level degree and you got a job and now you're stable, now I have to sit with myself. I have to sit with myself, bro. I got to sit with myself and be like, dang, I didn't waste all these years doing nothing, talking. Because let's talk about it. Talk is so cheap today. Actually, talk ain't even cheap today. You got a bunch of bird brains getting online. Straight up bird brain, bird food on the end of the podcast. Talk about it. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, then it becomes a thing of like, oh, if you elevate, you level up, I have to sit with myself. So that's where we get stuck, bro. We go through a lot as Black people, but I'm telling you right now, there are so many resources out there today. I know, like I said, we talk about therapy. I don't want to lean too far on that in this podcast episode because what I'm talking about is more so having an ingenuity for your livelihood. I'm not necessarily talking about mental health, but resources are there. The internet is there. I know it's really hard to like find good stuff. It's hard to find good stuff, but like you got to be resourceful. You have to be resilient. And whatever it is that you're trying to do, weed through things. Take the resources here. Take the resources there. Weed through it. Shuffle through it. You see what I'm saying? You might want the beans, but you might not want the macaroni. You know what I mean? You might not want the rice. Well, you might want the rice because the rice is good. Rice is good. All right. Hallelujah. But anyway, I just wanted to get on here and say that, wherever you are in your life, if you're a young man, if you're a young woman, you're at home, or if you're an elder, whoever is on the end of this podcast, keep pressing in your life and try to build something for yourself, whatever avenue that takes, period. Right. For so many people, like I said, with entrepreneurship and the things that you want to do, you need a vehicle. Whether you want to go to school, I don't care what you do. You need a vehicle to sustain that. Period. You cannot build anything if you do not have a foundation. Period. Your foundation can be Christ, absolutely. But guess what? He's going to bring about certain ideas, certain things that you need to do to bring it to fruition into your life. And so, it's going to be a vehicle. Maybe the vehicle is the podcast. Maybe one day you want to be a news broadcaster. But guess what? You got to get on the road and you have to get in the vehicle, something that is going to carry you. You see what I'm saying? Ideas do not carry you. Ideas are just thoughts in your head. They're just that's it. That's all. That's it. That's all. All right. It's nothing wrong with, listen, all I'm saying is this. And I think I've made myself very clear, and I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up because I'm not trying to give Tabitha Brown on y'all. I'm joking. But, I just think at the end of the day, you guys, to be successful and to really do anything in life, it takes a lot of hard work. And, it's not even so much of just like, oh, I'm going to build something. I'm going to work on this every day because you have life stuff. We have childhoods, we have memories, we have things there's so much that we have to work through as an individual. We have breakups along the way. We have, life just be lifing. But I'm telling you right now, you guys, as someone who has come from the back to the front, okay, or at least is making my way to the front, life is so much easier when you have stability. Life is so much easier when how this is going to get paid and you can save for that. Right? You can invest and save this maybe $20, $5, whatever for the business, for the thing that you want to do. Life is so hard when you do not have a vehicle, and it's only going to get harder the longer you wait to get on the road, listening to people who are projecting their shortcomings, their hurt, their pain, and you don't think anything of it because you're like, oh, surely this is a relative, or surely this is my best friend, or whatever. They have my best interest at heart, but that's just not true. And it ain't even always them, because let me tell you something. I've met people who, who should be advisors or whatever the case may be. They've done it. But guess what? They telling me I can't do it. Why they telling me I can't do it? Because I'm a Black girl. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to be so careful about your livelihood and what you're building and what you're trying to make happen for yourself, because people are just going to project. And I hate to say it, it gets to a certain point where, this is why I do what I do, to try to share the things that I've learned, because it gets to a certain point where people stop looking out for you. Like, you're no longer that child. You know what I mean? Like, once you grown. And people don't always care. And people don't really care. I don't want to say people don't care about you, because I think that's way too that's just like, I think that's a heavy thing to say. I have to disagree. But I think people care about you. But I just think that, it gets to a point where you are responsible for you. And what I find with a lot of people, when you get past all the glitz and glam of like the entrepreneurship, the $1 million homes, whatever the case may be, people just want stability. People want to be able to provide for their families, right? And I'm not saying it's impossible. And I'm not saying I'm sorry, not impossible. That's not what I'm going to say. I'm not saying you're not going to have hurdles. I'm not saying it's not going to be challenging. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is that, in order for you to do that, though, you got to get yourself together. You know what I mean? Like, you have to get yourself together. Walk with God. Try to do the right thing. Do the right thing. All right. Try to do the right thing and keep pressing and working what it is that you're working. Stability starts small, but it's just a little seeds of peace. You know what I mean? It's a little seeds of peace. And like, at the end of the day, y'all, I got to be honest with you, honey, so much of it just doesn't even matter. I was watching an interview with Summer Walker, and y'all know I do not like to drop names on my podcast, because the way y'all just be acting, child, it'd be too much. But, I'm actually not even going to use that analogy, and I'm going to just scrap that entire example, because I'm not going there with y'all again, even though this is my damn platform and I can say whatever I want to say and use whoever I want to use, but I'm not going there. I ain't doing it, Anyway, at the end of the day, life is pretty ordinary. I guess that's what I want to kind of conclude with, because I had a podcast talking about life is ordinary, and I didn't post it. But life is really ordinary, y'all. It's the family football Sundays, and maybe, I'm not even going to project, because, what may be peaceful and ordinary for me may not be that way for you, right? I'm from the Midwest. I have a very a small town girl, big head, big ideas, you know what I mean? But like small town girl. So my values are pretty rooted. I don't have certain, I didn't grow up in LA, I didn't grow up in New York, so I'm very different in terms of what I value. So I definitely don't want to project onto anybody else. But at the end of the day, I think I finished that podcast episode by saying, regardless of if you're in a Benz or if I'll say Bentley, well, maybe not Bentley, because, at this point you're talking something different. But, regardless of what you're driving, right, you got to get the kids to school in the morning, right? Like, you got to come home and cook dinner. You know what I mean? You got to bathe that night. Like, and I say all that to say, like, that's really what life is, regardless of the materials that you have or the resources that you have, like, it's really ordinary. And the moments that matter and the things that matter is like, for me, again, different for everybody. I do not want to project, it's your friends, it's your family, it's your spouse, it's your children. Like, it's those relationships and things like that that really matter at the end of the day, because you can be in a big house, but you feel alone, you feel empty, you feel, but it's like, if you have, the things that really matter in life, it makes a huge difference. And so again, definitely don't want to project. I know that's different for everybody. But I'm concluding there. I don't want to keep going because I don't want to lose the plot on this podcast episode. But I hope you guys got something from this. Keep pressing in your life, and realize that opposition is going to come in every which way, but continue to believe in yourself, put your best foot forward at the end of the day. And I truly, truly believe this, y'all. I believe it with my whole heart. Like, if you work hard at something and you keep pressing, even when it's not glamorous, even when it ain't making sense, but it's small, or, it gives you a sense of stability and it gives you a sense of peace. It's your foundation. One day you are going to be in that mansion, right? And obviously it may not be, I'm obviously speaking in a parable. Come on now. Hello. It may not be, okay. Yeah. You get the point. Maybe that was but I was trying to be on my motivational tip and with something lighthearted, but yes. Peace.